The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Good morning, CaneSport. It's July 23rd, 2025. I'm Gary Ferman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, joined this morning by our managing editor, Matt Shodell, as we discuss the news of the day. And Matt, I wanted to take today's show and talk a little bit about some of the stuff that we saw and heard yesterday at ACC Media Day. It was really interesting, and I thought that all the guys from Miami, from Mario Cristobal on down, really handled themselves really well. But the thing that I think that we were most interested to see and hear was Carson Beck, and that's because we haven't had the opportunity to talk to him a lot since he arrived in Coral Gables, and hear him and observe him. And he was considerably different than the Carson Beck that we saw during spring practice, just sort of standing out on the field very stoically and absorbing what was going on around him. You could tell that the summer months have just gone miles and miles and miles for him and his teammates, and getting comfortable with each other, getting to know each other, working on their craft, spending time in the film room. And I thought I was looking at a much more comfortable, much more confident Carson Beck that showed up in Charlotte for media day, and really handled himself well the entire day. Your thoughts?
It's I can't remember the last time a Miami Hurricane player showed up for any media day wearing hundreds of thousands of dollars in jewelry. I mean, the guy's got a diamond necklace that was so bright. I don't think they get photos of his face because it was just radiating the light right back at the photographers. The people on ACC Network spent more time asking about his watch than they did about his progress.
How about Mark Rick saying that you're getting paid more than I got at Miami?
Yeah.
To me, that was the line of the day.
Humble is not the word I would use to describe Carson Beck, but that's okay.
He really is making more money than Mark Rick made, by the way. I think it's pretty damn close.
It's crazy. The words that Carson Beck said were fine. They were fine. What encouraged me most, and I wrote this yesterday, right? You have the Todd McShays, the Georgia people, the naysayers on one side, right?
Who were a lot of naysayers.
Yeah, and Carson Beck specifically said that, Georgia wanted me back. He didn't say how badly they wanted him back. They certainly weren't going to match Miami's offer. That's straight from Georgia. But so that's one side. But you have Francis Mauigoa saying this guy's a great leader. He's doing all the right things. He's already changing our protections in practices that they're holding, player only practices, I assume, as allowed. And they trust him. And Mario Cristobal is always going to say nice things. But when you have a player saying that, Francis Mauigoa is not a guy who's ebullient about anybody. He's not, it depends who it's coming from, right? When Mario Cristobal says, oh, the guy's a leader, whatever. He says everybody's good at everything, When Francis Mauigoa, a guy, an offensive lineman, who he's not going to just make stuff up. That's not Francis, if you know Francis. He's going to tell the truth. And if he doesn't want to tell the truth, he's not going to say anything. He's one of those guys, right? So for him to be so ebullient, you can look it up, Gary, to be so ebullient about Carson Beck, to me, that speaks more than anything. Because I don't care what happened with Carson Beck at Georgia. I don't care if he was indeed the most selfish player in the history of Athens, Georgia. I don't care if every player on the team hated him. And I don't care if the coaches didn't want him back, even though it appears maybe they would have for the right price. What I care about is how he's going to be at Miami. Who cares about what happened? Everyone wants to know Joe Biden was so bad. Donald Trump, President 1, was so bad. I want to know what's happening now in this country. I want to know what's happening now with Carson Beck. I don't care what happened yesterday or 10 years ago or 5 years ago or 1 year ago. I want to know what's happening now. I want this country to be great now, no matter who's running the country. And I want Miami to be great now, no matter who's past we're talking about, So if Carson Beck is indeed doing the right things, even if he wasn't doing the wrong things, let's say he wasn't, don't you deserve a second chance? Don't people get second chances I'm not going to change. I'm already too old and ornery and hate everything. It's not going to happen. But Carson Beck's a young man. He's still growing into who he's going to be as a person, probably to some extent, as all 22, 23-year-olds are going to be. And yeah, he likes to invest in high-end jewelry and cars. And, that's okay, as long as he's throwing touchdown passes. And Francis Mauigoa says he is doing really, really well. So to me, that was the most encouraging thing. Carson Beck, his interviews were fine. They were fine. He talked about his experience that he has at Georgia, how it's helping him, but it's going to get better every single year. He did not offer any specifics about, hey, I'm in the film room every day with the receivers, or I'm throwing with the receivers every day. That stuff you want to hear. You didn't hear it, but whatever.
Yeah, but he is. Yeah.
Right. But whatever. That's the whole point. I mean, he probably is.
Yeah, he is.
He certainly should be, but it's voluntary, right? And he certainly has a lot of time that he has to spend at jewelry stores buying stuff. But when he's not at the jewelry stores and not at the car dealerships, I hope he's in the film room. So there is no discernible chip on his shoulder. He seemed relaxed, very relaxed.
Very.
Now I don't know if that's good, because I don't know enough about Carson Beck's personality. Everyone who tells me about Carson Beck, they say he's sort of quiet with a weird, shy sense of humor type thing. And once you get to know him, it takes a while to get to know him, and then you like him. Like, that's what everyone says about him. So maybe he's just this aloof guy with a competitive side when he's on the field, right? Like, there's plenty of players who they say he's the nicest guy off the field. And when he gets on the field, he's diving at your knees and biting your hand under the pile, Maybe he's one of those guys. So, there are some things that certainly concern you. Todd McShay, who studies film for a living, right? He says that Carson Beck, compared to all the other elite quarterbacks that he looked at last year, was the worst in terms of setting his receivers up with good throws. He says Carson Beck made his receivers work to make catches. In other words, they weren't throwing in good ball placement, which is concerning to hear from someone like Todd McShay. And that's something that we're going to have to monitor, right? Because
I'm not going to name names, but I've spoken to somebody that's watched every single throw that he made at Georgia, and that's not the review that I got. So
McShay is making excuses for why Georgia had the most dropped yardage in the Power Four. I don't know if McShay has an angle or
he was the consensus
axe to grind or whatever, but that's what he said.
The consensus number one quarterback in the country going into last season.
Correct.
He didn't get to that level of status in everybody's minds by being an erratic passer. I'm sorry.
Right. No, correct. Listen, I have been consistently saying that I think Carson Beck's going to be just fine. He's not going to be Cam Ward, but I project him to throw to 30 touchdown passes. I wrote an article about that. I think he's going to be excellent, which is why I keep saying if the defense can just be a top 20, top 30 defense in scoring defense, that this team will be a playoff team, because I do believe that Carson Beck is really good. I think he's an NFL quarterback. Is he a first-round NFL quarterback? I'm not so sure, because he has made some bad decisions. But if he eliminates the bad decisions, he has all the arm talent in the world. He has the size of a prototypical NFL quarterback. He has enough mobility to escape to some degree, right? He's not a running quarterback. So he's got a lot of things going for him. And if Shannon Dawson puts him in the right position, this is a team that, again, can average 35 to 40 points. I mean, they average 44 points. But if you can average 35 to 40 points, that's something that hadn't happened at Miami since 2002, I want to say, prior to last season. So if we're in that range with Carson Beck, that's all you want. And I think he can get the team there.
Yeah, look, it's media day. There's nothing ever said that's negative at media day. Media day is.
Oh my God! Did you watch the Stanford press conference? It's like they're going to be the best team in the country.
Every team is going to be the best team in the country. It is a festival of happiness and illusion. Okay, every team is going to be number one. Every team's great. Every team got everything coming. All right, so it's media day. Okay, but. I did walk out of this one feeling like I liked what I saw of Carson Beck. And you mentioned the word relaxed. He absolutely was more relaxed than we have ever seen him. And keep in mind, we haven't seen him since mid-April, at spring practice. So May, June, July. It's been 3 months since we laid eyes on Carson Beck. It just looked different to me. He looked much more relaxed, much more comfortable. And you could see that the chemistry is building with his teammates. At least I felt like I saw that. You won't know for sure till we go out to practice on the 31st. but it at least had that appearance. And then the other thing you mentioned was protections, and that's something that I've been hearing a lot about. He's been spending a lot of time with Alex Mirabal, the offensive line coach, in the offensive line room, and Shannon Dawson discussing the various plays and the protections that might be available to him in those situations, and how he might have the freedom to call for different protections and stuff. This is a kid with an amazing football IQ. He's paid his dues in college football. He has been a quarterback. He's learned offenses. He understands them. There's nothing that's a foreign language to him, even coming into a new system at Miami. So I think they will give him those freedoms, and I think he will have a Cam Ward like permission list out on the football field this year, with the qualifier being that I think they're going to look for him to check out of less running plays. Mario Cristobal made it a point yesterday in Charlotte that Miami was number 4 in the country in yards gained per rushing attempt, and he clearly feels like they can run the ball as effectively as they can throw the ball, and he's probably right with the offensive line and the running backs they got coming back. So my guess is they're going to be looking to put a little less pressure on Carson Beck than maybe was on Cam Ward last year, and we'll see how that played out. So a couple other things that I just jotted notes on, like he said he's 100% healthy, which we've known for some time. He started throwing seriously back in April, and he talked about the process, how he only was allowed to throw like 100 balls a week and progress from there. But he progressed very quickly, and it wasn't very long after April when he was able to start turning it loose. So certainly June, July, it's been full letting it rip, and he should be absolutely ready for training camp. And I thought it was funny. He said his first pass coming back off the injury was a tight spiral, and that gave him the confidence, like, hey, I can still do this. And he's just run with it from there. He's been watching a lot of film with the players, throwing a lot of extra routes to the receivers. All the reports that I've gotten on that have been very, very positive. So, the other thing that it struck me was when he said, this is my future, and coming to Miami was one of the best decisions I've ever made. Okay. And the fact that he hasn't played a game yet for Miami, and that's how he feels about being here, was another thing that I thought was extremely positive. And I liked what he was saying about his chemistry with Shannon Dawson, who's a pretty easy guy to get along with. Honestly, Shannon's what's the best way to describe Shannon? He's just like a nice dude, and very easy to talk to, and isn't all full of himself. You don't get the impression he's one of these coordinators that thinks he's God's gift to offense. He didn't create the offense he's running. Okay, there were coaches before him that created this offense, and he seems to embrace getting the players involved in the what's the word I'm looking for? Like the finalization of what plays they're going to run. Because you start out with this huge offense any year, and you have all these plays available to you. You're going to shrink it down during training camp. And he's had conversations with Carson Beck. What plays that you've seen are you most comfortable with? Are there any plays that we don't have that you ran at Georgia that you feel like we should be running here that you're really comfortable executing? There's a lot of give and take in putting this offense together. And that's why Notre Dame is going to be really challenged on opening night, because they're not really going to have a clue what the hell Miami's going to be running, because, there was the offense with Cam Ward last year, but there's no guarantees it's going to be the same offense with Carson Beck. I would say the guarantee is it probably won't be exactly the same. So a lot of very interesting things going on. Really exciting media day for Carson Beck, and we brought you tons of coverage of it. If you haven't had a chance yet to read it on the website, make sure you do. I believe we've got a couple different stories on Carson Beck and everything he was saying. There's also video that you can watch of his press conference. So a lot of good stuff there on the website for you to check out on Carson Beck. Now, the other thing that really struck me coming out of media day, Matt, was Mario Cristobal. Mario's great with the media. I wish he would do it more. I don't think he goes in front of the media enough, quite honestly. Sometimes it's just once a week during training camp, and I just think that he's so insightful and he's just really polished in front of the media. I thought that he showed an even other level of maturity and polish in Charlotte yesterday. Handled himself extremely well in every interview that he did. Your thoughts? You listened to Mario through a lot of different media sessions yesterday. Your thoughts on how Mario Cristobal handled himself?
I have a few thoughts based on what you said also, but my main takeaway on Mario is he's discovered a new word. He gets these code words that he likes to use every year, and it goes from blueprint to you guys have all seen the interviews, right? There's certain words that he just repeats over and over and over again. And his new favorite word apparently is callous. He used it multiple times. He says, we have to get calloused, which I don't know if he looked at his feet this morning or what, but that's his new word. I guess that's his new word for being tough, because apparently tough isn't a good enough word to describe what the team has to be. So now they have to be calloused. Okay.
Maybe he means get reps in and,
he means it to be a tough team, but that's his new word anyway. But you mentioned Mario and the run game and how he really was harping on that. We were fourth in yards per game. Like, he came with a bunch of run game stats and
said it multiple times.
For those of you out there that don't know Mario, he's doing it for a reason. And the reason he's doing it isn't to let fans know Miami's going to have a good running game. It's to let the opponents know, hey, you better stop our run first, because he does want to take the pressure off Carson Beck, like Gary mentioned. He wants other teams to try and stop the run. He's putting the memo out there to every opponent that we have a great running game. I think we can run the ball. We're going to really try to run the ball.
And his own team, by the way, Matt. And his own team.
Which is very encouraging to me, because it indicates to me that he loves what he's hearing and seeing about Carson Beck, and he thinks that they can come out throwing the ball like crazy against Notre Dame. For him to be saying that over and over to every single media outlet at ACC Media Day, if you know Mario, they will be lighting it up through the air against Notre Dame. They probably won't even try to run the ball that much, okay? Because Notre Dame has a great secondary and a great defensive line. I think they're going to come out throwing the ball. You watch. He did not say that for no reason. And then the worst news.
I have a whole different interpretation than you on that. I think he's saying the message like, hey, let's not forget we can run the ball really, really well too. And we can talk about Carson Beck all day, but we're also going to run the ball. We got good backs and an offensive line. So I think that's the message he's sending. But who knows? It's all a matter of individual interpretation, I guess.
And then he got some really, really bad news, unfortunately, which is he has to. This is really bad. He has to put out an injury report 2 days before the game, and it's going to kill him to write down any name of any player with upper extremity, lower extremity, middle extremity. I don't know, what he's going to do with that, because I'm telling you right now, he's going to be the worst in the league at filling this thing out, and he's going to get in big trouble. I mean, whatever they do to coaches that don't do it correctly or accurately, and that player's actually missing and he wasn't on the report, that will happen in Miami constantly throughout the season. I'm telling you right now.
You might not want to hold them to the standard of honesty and accuracy like on FSU
it's not
week
honesty.
or SMU week. I don't think he'll
It's not honesty. It's gamesmanship. He will pay the $100,000 fine if it means the other team doesn't know that Miami's missing one of their key players. And you know what? Good for him. Like, I don't disagree with that. Just because the ACC is not doing it to make it an even playing field in the ACC. They're doing it because of gamblers. Okay, Mario's not gonna feed into this. Oh well, now I got to give up my injury secrets because a bunch of gamblers might have inside information.
So everybody can do an accurate handicapping job.
Yeah, he's got to give an injury report, not just 2 days before the game, also update it the day before the game, and update it 2 hours before the game. Like, good luck to other teams that think that's going to be accurate for Miami.
I can't wait to talk to our resident handicapper, Lee Sterling, about that.
Yeah.
I'll have to remember that.
And the best part, and there'll be players on there that are definitely playing. Like, he's just going to throw a ton. It's either going to be 80 names on that list, or like just people he's going to leave off. My guess is he'll put every freaking player on the list, because everyone's hurt at some point. He could list he will list 80 guys. I take it back. I think that's what he'll do. He's going to put 80 guys on the list every single week and let the other team figure out who's actually going to miss the game. Because I don't think that the injury report has to mean they're missing. I don't think it's a questionable, doubtful, out, probable. I think it's just a list. And then with the parentheses, upper, lower, whatever. But we'll see how they make them do it. Anyway, and then the commissioner also said that when he informed over a group, they had a group call with all the coaches to give them the new updates from the league.
To
And
break the news.
the commissioner says when he told the coaches, "Hey, here's what we're doing this year. We're doing injury reports." He says,
Nobody
"Just
said a word.
silence."
Silence.
No coach was like, "Great idea." No coach was like, "Oh, finally, we get to give the." He says it was just dead silence, and then they moved on to the next subject. So he says he has no idea how the coaches actually feel about it. I can tell you how they feel about it. And then you mentioned that going back
Some
to
might be happy about it.
yeah, a couple more things from what you said earlier. You mentioned Shannon Dawson. One of the interesting things about Shannon Dawson, and Carson Beck mentioned this. He says Shannon Dawson, and Dawson did this with Cam Ward too when Cam came from Washington State. He asked Carson Beck what plays he liked to run at Georgia. So there will be some Georgia plays incorporated. Like you said, other teams aren't going to know what Miami's doing. Notre Dame is going to have to look at Georgia's offense and Miami's offense with Shannon Dawson. And if they do that, they will know what Miami's doing. But there's such a wide, you're studying for two different teams, and you got to figure out what Carson Beck likes to do the most patterns from Georgia, game plan those, and then look at Shannon Dawson, what he likes to do, and figure that out, and then extract and take away all the Cam Ward Superman plays. It's an impossible task. If Notre Dame could put 50 different defensive assistants on this, and it would take them probably 5 years to actually come up with, here's the 30 plays that we probably have going to run.
They're watching, like you said, they're eliminating the Cam Ward improv plays. They're looking at the offense, and then they're looking at probably watching every throw that Carson Beck's ever made in his career and seeing what he does well, what he doesn't do well, and assuming that Miami's going to try to go in that direction. But, hey, another thing I thought was really interesting is Mario Cristobal was clearly – Mario prepares for these things, okay? And he clearly wanted to send the signal that 3 years, really now it's almost 3.5 years, when he was coming to Miami and was evaluating what he inherited here, that there was one 7th-round draft pick on the football team. Yeah. Now, I haven't double checked that fact. It all runs together for me, but I'll give him the benefit of the doubt that that's accurate what he's saying. And then he was pointing out that this year they had the number 1 pick in the draft and 7 total draft picks. And this was a sign of the progress that the program was making. And of course Mario wants to send the signal like, hey, we inherited a mess and we're making progress, because it's important to people look at it that way, so they're not breathing down his neck every second of every day, which they shouldn't be. Mario's job security is unquestioned, and there's nobody that's a Miami fan that should be playing the what if game, because you do not want Mario Cristobal to fail. Trust me. I look at the way this program has to be run now, how much more complicated everything is with the NIL and now rev sharing and all that coming in, and the management of the whole thing. Mario Cristobal is not just the head coach of the football team. He is the general manager of the program, with all respects to, Dennis Smith and Taylor Edwards and the guys that, handle a lot of that stuff internally. Nothing happens without going through Mario. And, it's a big job, and it's exhausting. And it was nice to see him loose. He seemed a little refreshed. Must have gotten a few days off here this month, and it was encouraging to just to hear how he felt about the personnel and being so much better, and the work ethic of the team. He was talking about how nothing is too much for these kids, which obviously is a good thing. He loves his offensive line. So yeah, it's media day where everything's positive, and it certainly was positive with Mario Cristobal, Matt. But I did sense a little genuineness in what he was saying, and I really think that they feel pretty good about this team going into fall camp.
Yeah, and he was right. The 7th-round pick was John Ford in 2022. What he didn't say, there were some guys who were drafted that were Manny Diaz guys the next year and the year after, right? The Tyreek Stevensons, the Will Mallorys, DJ Ivey was drafted, right? Cam Kinchens wasn't a Mario recruit, et cetera, et cetera. So James Williams. So there's a bunch of other guys that he inherited, right? Who's like, he didn't mention them, but he's correct. That is correct. A 7th-round pick when he came in, and then he had 7 last year, which is great. And of course, of those 7 last year, how many of them were actually recruited. Elijah Arroyo, Jalen Rivers, and Andy Borregales. The others were just transfer portal guys who were developed elsewhere. So, he says 7. I mean, really, it was 3 homegrown Hurricane recruits, and Elijah Arroyo wasn't his either, but whatever. It's neither here nor there. The point is he's going to try to continue the upward growth of the NFL draft, right? So I'm not going to be Fox News or CNN and go one way or the other. It's both ways, right? It's just upward. Let's just go upward, okay? Let's just be great for the Hurricanes. But yeah, I mean, everything's pointing in the right direction to me. I made the mistake of posting yesterday my thought that 9 wins would be okay with Miami fans and they'd forgive Mario because this is a team that's going to have 10 transfers starting or whatever. But fans said, F you loser, you're wrong, and it better be 10 wins. So I guess it's 10 wins it is, which is my prediction anyway. And then, I got to call you out a little bit too because, just like Mario, you sort of give half the picture, right? Mario with the 7th round draft pick and all the rest of the guys ever since have been my draftees. It's gone up, up and under me. And you mentioned, you said Carson Beck gave the quote yesterday that he said, one of the best decisions I've ever made was to come to Miami. But you didn't give the whole picture. He followed it up by saying, and one of the best pictures, and he said, one of the best decisions I also ever made was buying a Lambo. And you can't just put one quote without the other.
Sick. You're sick.
It's called taking quotes out of what's it called? Out of
context. Yeah, no, you're sick.
That's the word.
There's something seriously wrong with you.
I can't make this stuff up.
You're warped. Your brain.
He was thinking that. I'm just saying what he was thinking.
Well, all that said, and you are sick, and your brain is warped and scrambled, and all that. We still love to throw you into the lab, okay? And we've tried. It's a long off season, guys, and we try to take a look at what's about to happen from every different angle. And, we've looked at the opponents, we've looked at the schedule, we've made predictions and looked at other people's predictions and things like that. But today we put Matt in the lab. Well, actually it was yesterday. We put Matt in the lab and no, I take that back. It was the day before yesterday. We put Matt in the lab and we asked him to take a look at the 2025 season, at the ceiling, the floor, and then reality. Okay, just for fun. It's like, obviously the ceiling is 12-0. Could this team go 12-0? Absolutely. Is it likely to go 12-0? Probably not. There's not too many teams that can do that. Every now and then a team pops and is able to go undefeated over the course of the season. It's just so damn good. I think all of us would be shocked if Miami went 12-0. Man, I'm sure you would agree with that. Like, none of us are going to sit here and predict a 12-0 finish. However, when you break it down week to week and game to game, there is a path to 12-0. A reality of probably 10 wins, 9 wins, hopefully. I'm thinking at least 10. I know Matt's thinking at least 10. And then there's what's the worst case scenario? What if everything goes wrong? And I think that in this story that's on the website today that you guys can check out, I think Matt landed at a 6-6 record as being the floor of what this team's capable of. Matt, all that said, people can read the story. It's really interesting. Give us a little summation of your exercise in looking at the ceiling, the floor, and reality for the Miami Hurricanes 2025 season.
I mean, it speaks for itself. But what's interesting to me is when you look at it this way through, and this is again through odds analysis, right? Which games are going to be the easy games? Which are the and an easy win is going to be you're a 10-point or more favorite, right? That's going to be your easy win. A win's going to be 7 to 10 points, and then you got the closer games. Anything within 7 points of a line, it could hypothetically go either way. And then there's some where it's within 2 or 3 points, which are toss-ups. But as you look at the story this morning, for those of you that aren't just sort of cheap and won't refuse to subscribe because I'm so annoying, what I can tell you is the study of best case, worst case, which is, obviously best case are going to win every game. But worst case would be analyzing games they might lose, right? Those games that are going to be in that gap where it's, maybe a 7-point or less point spread perceived, that sort of thing, right? Those are games they could lose. So this sort of really reveals where the schedule is difficult and where the schedule becomes easy, right? Because if you look at the worst case scenario in after game 8, the worst case scenario is 3-5, which means out of their first 8 games, 5 of those games are not gimmies. That's essentially what that means, right? 5 of those games are going to be, around a 10-point line or less, and Miami's going to be favored in all of them, I think, except for the Notre Dame game, right, where they're already a slight underdog. But then after that, the worst case scenario goes to 6-5. So they have 3 really easy games after that, right? Right in the middle of the season. Syracuse is not going to be good this year. NC State's not going to be good this year. Virginia Tech should not be good this year. They're not terrible, but they're not going to be good. Okay. So now you're looking at, worst case 6-5 record. You got those 3 easier games. And then you just wind up at Pittsburgh, and that's it. So and Pittsburgh will not be easy. We already talked about being a trap game. But the point is, really, we're going to know after 8 games, if Miami's 8-0 after 8 games, you just got to worry about Pittsburgh. If Miami's 7-1 after 8 games, they're going to be in the playoffs. Like, it's that simple to me. And so those first 8 games tells me, Mario today was saying how, he was asked a question in the press conference portion. Your teams have faded. Miami's been fading every year at the end of the year. How do you fix that? He talks about mental toughness, and they can't let that happen. But this year they can let that happen, right? Because as long as those first 8 games are good, like, they're not losing those next 3. Okay, and then you just got to deal with Pittsburgh at the end of the year. So
don't sleep on that
this
road.
This is a very front-loaded schedule, and if they do not come out of the gate firing on all cylinders, it's a disaster. So that's with so many moving pieces, I don't know if that's good. My preference with 10 or 11 new starters that are all transfers, with a new kicker.
Don't tell me you wish they were opening against Bethune-Cookman.
Well, not Bethune. You can't backload every game. But what I'm saying is, I would have rather a more balanced schedule, right? Make Florida the last game, make Virginia Tech the second game, like something like that, right? Instead of having the first 8 games, you got 5 of your tough ones, and the last 5 games you have one tough one, right? Or the last 4 you have one tough one. Like, I would rather have a little more balance.
Who would have thought the Cal game would go the way it went last year? I mean, it had, Virginia Tech on the road.
But my point is this, right? You're playing a Notre Dame team and a Florida team that have a lot of pieces back, and Miami does not. And to have Miami have to play those games in the first 4, it's a little bit of a disservice, right? It's pretty obvious. Teams that play together for a long period of time, know most of the other players are playing along with, they're going to be ahead of the game. You have 30 days to practice. That's it. That's not a lot with coaches. That's not a lot. So that's the only worrisome factor. And I have them splitting with Notre Dame and Florida. I have them winning one of those 2. I don't have them winning both. If they win both, they're going to be 4-0 and freaking flying. They'll be considered. They'll be a top 10 team and probably considered a top national championship caliber program if they beat both those teams. If Carson Beck looks good, the defense looks good, they beat Florida, they beat Notre Dame, then you're looking undefeated, right? And I know Gary said nobody's expecting undefeated. We'll know after 4 games. After 4 games, Gary and I might be sitting here saying they should be undefeated. They should be undefeated. And you know what? The betting lines are close for Notre Dame and for Florida. Miami's favored by a little bit against Florida and underdog by a little bit against Notre Dame. So reality says split those 2. And then you're off to the ACC schedule. You can lose one of those games, and then you're in the ACC championship game, and you're going to the playoffs. And that's the more likely pattern.
My biggest concern of the season right now is the Notre Dame running game.
For sure.
I watched that kid is unbelievable, and
their line is really good too. And
we don't know what the Miami D line is really going to show up looking like. The defense tackles, we don't really know. We're hoping that the linebacker position is shored up by Toure coming from Rutgers, but we don't know. We don't know what the defensive backfield is going to look like against the run. There's a lot of variables in that first game with a running back of the caliber of Love standing over there. So we'll see what happens. It'll be very exciting for sure. Hard Rock is going to be lit up without a doubt on August 31st. And the last time Notre Dame came into that atmosphere, it didn't go so well for Notre Dame. So we'll see what happens.
That's a great game. Remember that game?
That was something else, wasn't it? All right, a couple of other things I just want to touch on that are on the website today. We are continuing our July Player Performance Index series and looking at the 30 most impactful players for the coming season. Today, we take a look at number 9, JoJo Trader, a kid that absolutely must deliver this year for the Miami Hurricanes. Should be poised for a huge season. Matt, give us real quick your thoughts on JoJo Trader and what you're expecting to see from him here in the coming weeks.
I've been pretty consistent saying I think he's a future star. The only question is he a future star this year? I think whoever winds up the main guy in the slot, and I'm hoping it's going to be Tony, but I think that is going to be the leading probably pass catcher and maybe yards guy, but JoJo won't be far behind. And the only reason the slot guy is going to do that is because that's just how Shannon Dawson loves to run his system. It's basically through the slot guy. So yeah, JoJo Trader. If JoJo Trader can be that real significant outside threat, that takes a safety that can't come in the box as much. I mean, and if it's not JoJo, it has to be somebody else. Like CJ Daniels was getting a lot of play yesterday, which I was surprised by. He was still sort of banged up. I mean, a foot injury last year at LSU that he played through. He didn't do real well, and then he didn't do much in the spring. No. But players are saying he's taken on a major leadership role. It seems like Carson Beck is already forming a great rapport with the guy. So will it be JoJo and CJ? I think that's very possible now. And then what do you do with Marion? Do you put him at slot now in that situation?
I think Marion's going to be out outside.
I would think so too. But if you got a guy like CJ stepping up, Marion's played a lot of slot, right?
Yeah.
So they got to figure this out. Because they got to get Tony on the field. They also took Tony Johnson.
The guy that I wonder what his role is going to be is Tony Johnson.
I don't know if he's going to. When they took him, it was like just an to me, and the guy's never had more than 500 yards receiving. Not the biggest, fastest, strongest, nothing like that. He's just like, okay.
They'll use him.
They took him because they needed an experienced slot guy. They were desperate to get a slot guy. They whiffed on a bunch of top slot guys, and he was the best one available at the time, right? Like, it's like in your fantasy football draft. You're in the 8th round. All the good running backs are gone, but you only have one running back on your roster. You're going to take a running back. He's not going to be real good, but you're going to take him. And I feel like that's what sort of Miami did. But I think they're sort of realizing that, Marion can work inside if he has to, that Tony's exceptional talent. You didn't hear Tony Johnson's name mentioned yesterday, right? So there's a reason for that. And Tony was mentioned a lot. CJ was mentioned a lot. Marion's an explosive guy. It's going to be a really interesting fall for defensive tackle and wide receiver. Those are the two positions that I think are going to be super interesting. And as important as Carson Beck is to offense, I'll give you a trivia question, Gary. Who do you think that I think, okay, not the normal person out here, who do you think that I think is the key to the defense, period? Like the most important player on this defense this year?
Justin Scott.
Mohamed Toure. Mohamed Toure, that's how
he is. You could certainly, I can't.
If
I
that
can't
guy, and supposedly he's looking pretty good. I don't know if he'll be full go by the start of fall camp.
He was the best player on Rutgers' team when healthy.
Correct. And if you watch his film, man, he is sick. And Basaint has gained 10 pounds up to 230. Like those two guys in this system can be home wreckers. Like those children on the other side of the ball will not be coming home to mom. They'll be in the hospital.
Yes.
So that's the guy to me. If that guy is playing like he did at Rutgers 2 years ago, this defense is going to be amazing, and that helps shore up the defensive tackles, right? Because now you have a physical downhill linebacker who will make the tackles in the gaps if the defensive tackles aren't gaining ground or being stood up. He can shoot that gap and make the tackle. Like that's the guy to me. And it sounds weird because there's so many, like Justin Scott has to be good, or Ahmad Moten, or David Blay. Like somebody has to be good on the line and on the interior. But I'm not going with those guys.
All right, well, that's going to do it for this morning for Good Morning CaneSport. We thank you so much for starting out your day with us. If you're not yet a subscriber to CaneSport.com, come on, man, jump on board. It's going to be an exciting season. The information is at the bottom of your screen. Great community of fans at CaneSport, and we do not think you'll be sorry if you come on over and join our family at CaneSport. In the meantime, for Matt Shodell, I'm Gary Ferman. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time, everybody.